I will have this little intro music go now. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Crowded Booth. Happy Wednesday. We have Palmer Toms here next to me. Now, Palmer, I got your name correct. That was the one thing I was worried about when talking to you.
You did.
Well, listen, Palmer, I want to talk to you real quick because the breaking news before we get into our full show today was Zamir White is returning to Georgia. You walk me through, I know on the message boards and everything, that's kind of how the some of the rumors get loose, but when did you all kind of get the feeling that Zamir was going to come back and kind of solidify what is already a dominant running back room in Athens?
Yeah, I mean, I think Zamir is a quiet guy. He's not one to kind of be super vocal. I mean, he's a leader on that Georgia football team, but he's not a vocal leader. He definitely leads by example, and so he wasn't very outspoken about what his intentions were for this upcoming season, whether he was going to go pro or whether he was going to return. I think everyone would have understood either decision, looking at his career at Georgia and his career in general. I mean, he was the number one running back out of high school, tore his ACL his senior year, tore his ACL his freshman year on campus, and then plays for 2 years, was the primary back this past year, 144 carries to lead the team, had pretty much almost over 100 more carries than anybody else on the team, 793 yards gained, 11 touchdowns, by far the most there. Next was James Cook with 3. So, I think, people certainly looked at that decision and understood, hey, if Zamir leaves and he goes pro, well, he's left a legacy in Athens already. But that there was still those questions of, okay, he's only been the guy for 1 year. He could benefit from coming back. He's 2 years removed from an ACL injury. Still hasn't shown the same shiftiness that he showed in high school, and I don't know that he ever will, given the fact that he's had 2 surgeries on his knee. But I think that there was still something to be seen, and as he put it in his tweet, unfinished business. He's got some unfinished business here, and certainly looks like several different Bulldogs on that offense and team in general have some unfinished business for 2021.
I know there's a little bit of a concern defensively in the secondary. They lose Stokes and Campbell. Tyreek Stevenson elects to transfer. But talk about offensively. It's been a while since Georgia, I feel like, has had this much promise heading into a season where you feel like everyone's almost coming back. You have 2 offensive line guys that are going to come back. Talk to me about offensively. What does this Georgia team have coming back? And for you, I mean, it's January 13th. We're 2 days removed from the national championship. But I'm telling you, Georgia fans every year, and myself included, we're in the company of this year's the year. To me, offensively, a full offseason with JT Daniels getting a nice repertoire with the receivers, which is arguably one of the most talented receiving groups that we've seen in Athens at the same time. Talk to me, what could fans expect? What should be the expectation for this team offensively in 2021?
Yeah, I don't know that there's been this much excitement about a team this far ahead of the season, probably since 2008 when they were the preseason number 1 team in the country. And obviously Kirby Smart has had some success in his time in Athens, and all those seasons, all those recruiting classes have kind of culminated to this point. You look at, what he did in 2017, taking that team to the national championship. There was certainly a lot of excitement after that season, with Jake Fromm coming back and every year that he was in town, he was, going to be the guy. There was Justin Fields hype. There's plenty of excitement then, but I think, just looking at the way that Georgia finished this 2020 season, there's a lot of reasons to be excited heading into next year. Like you mentioned, JT Daniels, getting more, comfortable with these receivers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you got to remember, this is a guy that showed up to Athens, had never met any of his teammates, had never met the coaching staff. he spoke with them over Zoom, but he told us his parents met Kirby Smart in person before he did.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
he's coming off of an injury, headed into that season. There was every reason in the world for him to be uncomfortable and be perfectly fine being uncomfortable. And now this is a situation where he should be comfortable. He played those final 4 games, and Georgia put up big numbers offensively. He got reps with the number 1 offense and those receivers. Everyone is coming back, and so like you said, offensive line, they've got 3 pieces returning there. All the running back room is they're going to add to it with Lavassier Carroll, but you've got Zamir White back, like we mentioned, James Cook, Kenny McIntosh, Dejon Edwards, Kendall Milton. A lot of promise with those 2 young guys between Edwards and Milton. Between the receivers, you've got George Pickens back. Kyrus Jackson led the team in receiving yards. He announced his return. You add Jermaine Burton, Arian Smith, Marcus Rosemy, Jack Saint. Those are 3 freshmen that are true freshmen that are just going to come into their own next year. You add Dominic Blaylock back into the picture. He tore his ACL before this season, and so there's and I'm forgetting Darnell Washington. Another big, literally big piece of this offense, and he's going to be more and more comfortable. As he gets reps during spring and gets a normal summer and into his second season, and so I think that there's every reason in the world for fans to be excited about what this offense's potential is.
You talked about excitement. You talked about the weapons. And like you said, Dog fans watching this are probably like, well, what's the bad news? Where's the big but? For this situation, is it Atlanta or bust? Because we're kind of seeing this year, obviously, the disappointment with the loss to Florida negates the ability to get back to Atlanta. And Dog fans may not want to admit this, but losing to Alabama, and I know it's been excruciating over the past couple years it's been happening, it's no shame. We just saw what they did Monday in the national championship. But in a year where it looks right now, obviously we still have a long way till that first weekend of college football in August. It looks like Georgia is the clear front runner in the SEC East. I mean, obviously Trask and company, there's a lot of losses. Is Emory Jones going to be the guy in Gainesville? You look at Tennessee, they've kind of had a lot of attrition. They have a whole kind of situation happening up there. South Carolina, the new coach. Vanderbilt, the new coach. You look across the board. I mean, Missouri could challenge, we could see, but if Georgia slips up and doesn't make to Atlanta, and I don't want to say that Kirby Smart's on the hot seat, but that would be a very big disappointment in a year where, to me, Georgia has far and away the best talent in the East going into 2021.
Well, and they very well might have the best talent in the SEC entirely. So, I do think that the expectation is that this team should get to Atlanta and should compete for an SEC championship. And realistically, looking at all these preseason rankings, or way too early preseason rankings, they are 1, 2, 3, 4 in all of them. So, by that token, the expectation is that this team should make the playoffs. And so, I think anytime that you are expecting to get to Atlanta, like Georgia fans are with this team, you mentioned this past season, the fact that they lost to Florida. Obviously, that's going to be the big hurdle once again. That loss to Alabama ultimately really didn't matter. Georgia would have had their second chance at Alabama, and that wasn't what kept them out of the playoffs this year.
Yeah.
It was the fact that they lost to Florida, didn't get that rematch with Alabama, and a chance to earn themselves a spot in the playoffs. You lose to Florida and you lose that opportunity. Well, once again, that's probably going to be the case this next season, is that Florida team is going to be the biggest competitor in the East. Like you said, Missouri, I think that they've got some talent returning in Eli Drinkwitz's second year and quarterback. He was a true freshman this year. I think that there's plenty of excitement up there. But I definitely think the East runs through Athens this year.
Last question for you, we'll let you go. An update on the recruiting class. Now, I know the big one a lot of people have been keeping their eyes on is Terrion Arnold. He named his top 3. He's kind of, he's this player. He's a great athlete. I've had the chance to watch him play in person. I'm telling you, he's got that kind of it factor when he's on the field. Talk about maybe some other recruits that are still out there that Georgia could be looking towards as we get towards signing day. Or Terrion Arnold in general. What are you hearing? I know he's got that top 3. I think he's announcing, correct me if I'm wrong, on February 3rd. But as we get closer to that kind of second signing day, for you, what are you hearing and what are some things that we should be on the lookout for?
Yeah, I think the whole transfer portal changes everything with this February
Mhm.
signing period, and the potential for the one-time transfer rule to go through before next season. And if you look at Georgia's needs, they need to hit that transfer portal, and they need to save spots in this class for guys that are going to transfer in. The fact that those scholarships are going to count. I think that, in all honesty, I don't know how many people that they are going to add,
Mhm.
on this second signing period. Obviously, Tyrion Arnold's got a spot if he wants it, and like you said, he announced his top three down to Alabama, Florida, and Georgia, and so I think looking at that and the transfer portal. The secondary is obviously a huge concern for Georgia this next season. They lose 5 defensive backs, 3 cornerbacks. Arnold being a safety is not going to solve that problem, but that might free up an opportunity for someone to work 2 different positions and cross train between safety and corner or safety and star. And then by that token, you've got guys that would be able to be freed up to cross train between star and corner. And so I think that the secondary is probably the biggest concern for Georgia, and that is something that they're going to attack, whether it be from this February signing period or in the transfer portal. That is going to be something that they attack in this second signing period.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out. And like you said, they're going to have to make a whole nother portal. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous the amount of players we're seeing enter it. But Palmer, we appreciate you coming on today. Best of luck to you. Palmer, where can our viewers find you on Twitter and publication wise?
Yeah, I'm over at Dogs247 at Twitter at Palmer Toms, keeping it simple over there. And providing great coverage of Georgia football, basketball, baseball, everything that's happening with the Dogs. Dogs247 means dogs all day.
And I got one more question for you because this throws it in because I'll be tuning in tonight. Is KD Johnson playing, and how do you feel about Georgia's chances tonight against Auburn?
Yes, KD Johnson is going to play. Georgia, previewed that they're going to wear the white throwback jerseys.
Mm-hmm.
Previewed KD Johnson's number 0 jersey, so he looks to make his Georgia debut tonight. It'll be interesting to see how they match up against this Auburn team. Auburn also coming with their own freshman Sharif Cooper, who's playing in his second game. So, going to be an interesting game, and certainly interested to see what KD Johnson can do tonight.
It'll be interesting indeed. 7 p.m. tip from Stegman Coliseum. Palmer, we appreciate you coming on, man. Best of luck to you as you continue your journey, and we'll have to have you on again.
Thanks, Bryce.
That was Palmer Toms. He joined the show. We appreciate that. We're going to head to commercial break. Yes, it's just me, but it's not going to be for long. We got Ralph and Will coming on for an action-packed hour-long show. We're going to talk some college hoops. We're going to take a look at some of the stuff happening in Georgia. Also, a former Georgia coach, former Auburn player, former Auburn coach, is headed back to the Plains that Will Mannis is going to talk to us about. So we appreciate you for watching. And when we come after this commercial, we will be right back.
Cook's Place began serving our signature hot dogs in 1985 from a cart on Broadway. We still serve the best hot dogs and scrambled dogs in town at the corner of Moon and Miller Road and at the landings. Our friendly staff won't let you leave hungry. Come in and eat to the beat with our 50s jukebox. Cook's Place, fast service, great people, awesome food. What are you waiting for?
Well, boys, it is fantastic to be back. We enjoyed Palmer Toms coming on the show, and Will, I don't know, you got your work cut out for you because listen, he talked. KD Johnson's playing tonight. It'll be interesting to see how they combat Sharif Cooper. We'll take a look at that game today, but first off, we have to get to our question of the day. Monday didn't go so well. There's no doubt about it. But I'll ask you tonight. I'll ask you this, and this is for people who are in the Columbus area, and we'll say Georgia area. I'll say Georgia area, Southeast, because Ralph was telling me today, Ralph met a certain person who had never had Zaxby's. And I got to know, Zaxby's or Chick-fil-A, or why? And why? And not or why, and why. Tell me why you like it, and please let me know, Zaxby's, Chick-fil-A, or hey, if you're a Canes fan, if you'd like something else, let me know. But tell me why. First off, Ralph, I'll give it to you first. Zaxby's, Chick-fil-A, and a real, you are on the podium, and this is what your campaign you're running on, and you got to tell me why you like this and what's going on with it.
Well, I'll tell you this right now, and I'm a huge Zaxby's guy. For sure, but they also have wings, and the wing sauces are really good to me. I'm a big hot honey mustard guy. As Russell says in the comments, God's chicken only. I agree. Chick-fil-A is definitely up there, but Zaxby's to me is the best because they have more options for me, as of different sandwiches, different types of sauces, and they just do it better. I feel like.
It is indeed going to be a tough decision, I think. Listen, Zaxby's has. I like the wings, some saucy nugs. You can't go wrong with some saucy nugs. Not boneless wings, saucy nugs. Will, real quick, because we do have some breaking news. We're going to break here on the show. Will, tell me real quick: Chick-fil-A or Zaxby's?
Well, I love Zaxby's, but I disagree with Ralph. They don't do it better than Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A all the way, higher quality, better service, and honestly, chicken tastes better. Chick-fil-A.
Now, I'll ask you this. I'll keep it on you.
Okay.
Are you a Chick-fil-A sauce or Zaxby's sauce kind of guy?
Ooh, Chick-fil-A sauce.
Chick-fil-A sauce. Ralph, what about you? I'm coming over to you now.
I'm a Zax sauce guy all the way.
You're a Zax sauce guy all the way. Listen, Chick-fil-A sauce slaps. Polynesian is very good. But, Ralph, go ahead and tell the people what is my favorite.
Oh, what is your favorite?
Yeah, what's my favorite sauce?
Oh, the creamy salsa?
Creamy salsa, baby. You get a spicy chicken sandwich, pepper jack cheese, a little creamy sauce action, and you are, I'm going to tell you one thing. You are thriving. I'm trying to type. We need to get an intern, but I'm going to tell you this right here. We do have breaking news here on the Crowded Booth. We're going to break it as Mr. Woj has broken it, and Shams, James Harden to the Nets. Now, I'm going to read you the package coming back here. This is the package coming back, okay? Are you ready?
You can tell this is breaking news to me. I had no idea.
No clue. Thanks to Russell Forhoff
It's not even on the
putting that in
ESPN
there.
yet.
Franklin Staples, one real quick. Chick-fil-A paid for my college, so yeah, you're right. Chick-fil-A paid for my college too, but I'm going to tell you one thing. That Zax is pretty good. James Harden to the Nets. Now, it's a blockbuster deal. Going back, there are 4 sending – oh, my gosh. The Nets are sending James Harden and 4 first-round picks. And 4 draft swaps, which means, they can swap that kind of how the Celtics
swaps,
and Nets
okay.
did. Yeah. No. 4 first-round picks and then 4 swaps.
What?
So almost a total of 8 picks. 4, Jarrett Allen and Karis LeVert.
Wow.
So, and also Shams is reporting that there could be another team or 2 involved. So this is about to be a mega deal. First off, I want your breaking reaction. Will's reaction was all we needed to hear, but breaking reaction, because, guys, I'll lead off with this. You put James Harden on that team, there's a bunch of guys that need the ball in their hands. We worried about that with Golden State a couple years ago, but I'm going to tell you one thing. If they find a way to make it work, I'll say it. He's not watching, but Matthew Lang, the Nets will beat the Lakers. Go ahead, anyone.
All right, so the Rockets got 4 first-round picks and 4 pick swaps and 2 really good players. Now, on the surface level, I don't think they got enough. Mm-hmm. But you got to take into consideration that James Harden was done playing for the Rockets. He made that clear after their last game last night.
At least they didn't lose him for anything.
Right. I mean, they really had no leverage. To have basically 0 leverage and get what they got is pretty incredible. So, but we'll have to see. We'll have to see if it's worth it for the Nets, because Jarrett Allen and Karis LeVert, really good young players. Mm-hmm. The Rockets can really build around them, and they've got good pieces there already in DeMarcus Cousins and John Wall, who, because of injuries, may be a little bit past their prime. And LeVert and Allen to kind of step in and play depth and supporting roles is really big for the Rockets.
Ralph, we talked about this the other day, depth. That is why the Warriors were so good when they assembled their mega team. You go back and you look at the bench for that. I mean, you had some great big men that would play and rotational. Obviously, you want to go even to the, before the bandwagon fans got on, Andrew Bogut was one that played a pivotal role for them. You had Sean Livingston, a tall, great player. Leandro Barbosa, you had him. Harrison Barnes played a pivotal role before being traded. Ralph, when you look at this, yeah, you see we have Kyrie. We have we got Kyrie. We have Kevin Durant. We got Harden. But you got rid of 2 pieces in Karis LeVert and Jarrett Allen. Now, I'll say this too. They have DeAndre Jordan, but sliding into the backup role, Georgia basketball fans will appreciate this, is Nicholas Claxton. He will most likely slide into that backup role. Listen, another big guy that can play well around the rim, can shoot a little bit. But when you look at this, I'll throw this question up here too, because Russell's right on it. Is there going to be enough food at the table for Harden? I don't know, but if they can make it work, Ralph, this team is very dangerous.
Yeah, and we're forgetting one more person on that team, and the Hawks fans will agree. Taurean Prince is also on the Nets.
Yes.
So that also adds a lot of depth to that team. Now, to answer Russell's question, no, there's not enough food on the table for Harden. This team could never play defense either, probably. So you never know. This team could be dominant as the Warriors were a few years ago, or they could just be as bad as we think they could be. I mean, you got too many guys who need the ball at all times. Kyrie's a ball hog. He always has been. Him and LeBron didn't work out at the end. Kevin Durant always has been a ball hog. That's why reason him and Russell Westbrook broke up. And, now this is, if you remember, a long time ago, this is Kevin Durant and James Harden reuniting from the Thunder a long time ago. So those two played very well together. When they were on the court together at the same time, they dominated. Now adding Kyrie, I don't know how that's going to work, but these two they can play with each other pretty well.
I'll tell you what.
Go ahead.
I don't know how much basketball y'all watched this year, how much Rockets y'all watched. Maybe not having food at the table would be good for James Harden. I mean,
he needs some help.
James Harden is
sorry.
No, I mean physically. He's oh man, he's a thick kind of let himself go.
And I want to throw in this because I just looked at the Nets roster, and maybe we're not giving this Nets team enough credit for their depth. I'm going to name off some players we didn't think about. Spencer Dinwiddie, a good player. Like he's injured, a really good player.
Yeah,
I think he's still injured. Joe Harris, Jeff Green,
he's out for the
veteran guys that can help. Tyler Johnson, the former guard from the Miami Heat. Obviously, they have DeAndre Jordan. We talk about Reggie Perry, Taurean Prince, and then Landry Shamet as well. So this team, if they can figure out, and you got to wonder too, as they get closer to a trade deadline, they're probably going to pick up, a mid-level exception type of contract with a veteran player that's looking to get out. There's an opportunity for them to be very good. Now, does this put them as the front runner of the East? To me, it does, because I don't know if the Bucks can play with them. There's too many options, and Giannis is great. Don't get me wrong, but I think when you kind of look exactly how this is going to fit out, there's not another dominant team. Boston, to me, has the tools, but I don't know what in the world they do every year. They just kind of have a panic attack and can't figure out how to put it all together. They have a ton of talent on that roster. But I think when you see, and I'll tell you, Knicks fans, it's not happening. It's not happening. You got a fun team.
Knicks have been playing good.
Julius Randle is a monster. No doubt about it. But I think when we look at this, James Harden, the Nets, we'll have to come back and kind of talk about how this changes the landscape of the NBA. Guys, is it safe to say, though, that do you like – I'll ask you this as we close on this topic. Do you like having superpower teams like this? Do you like or would you rather see like one star per team battling it out? How do you feel?
I'll let Will go first on this one.
I don't like it. I don't like the super teams. Well, you can have a super team if you draft and develop a super team. To buy a super team, like the Warriors super team is different before they added Kevin Durant, obviously.
Okay, whoa. Sorry. Breaking news that Shams just said here. The Rockets are acquiring Karis LeVert and the James Harden deal from Brooklyn and sending LeVert to Indiana to get Victor Oladipo. So Victor Oladipo is heading to the Rockets in addition to four first-round picks and 4 draft pick swaps. So the Pacers,
I think these NBA GMs are playing NBA 2K because
with forced trades on.
Yeah,
and sorry to interrupt you there.
Indiana's in a similar spot with Houston, where their star, like Oladipo, has voiced some frustration in Indiana as well, and there was speculation that he would be looking to get out. So they're kind of in the same spot that Houston was with Harden.
And I think, too, when you look at Oladipo heading now to the and guys, I'm telling you, the reason we're kind of all over the place is because this is literally happening as we are on the show, and you couldn't have asked for a better time to be live with news like this going. But I'm going to tell you, when you look at this, it's crazy. I had to update it here. James Harden to the Nets, Oladipo to Houston. I mean, I'm trying to refresh here on our man Shams, and he's telling us that this is crazy. I mean, this is landscape change.
I'm going to back up on what I said first. Houston got enough. Houston got more than enough now.
If Houston flipped, now I want to make sure, now, Will, that means that Houston is flipping LeVert for Oladipo, okay? Mm-hmm. And they're also sending 4 first-round picks and 4 draft pick swaps. Do you think Oladipo is that type of player?
Wait, they're sending that to Indiana?
Yeah, so the picks that they received from Brooklyn, and please, if you're in the comments watching, let me know if I'm wrong. But this is what we're hearing right now. The picks that came from Brooklyn, okay, are going to be now sent from Houston to Indiana. Now, keep in mind, Ralph, this is one thing that kind of happened. We talked about this a lot of time playing 2K back when the Nets made the trade for Kevin Garnett. Boston was so good that the picks weren't good enough. So, you know what I'm saying? So if Brooklyn makes these trades, this is now going to be tied. Take Houston out of the equation. This is now going to be tied to the fact that the picks that Indiana is receiving in addition to their own. But I'm telling you one thing, Indiana's got a good team. Like Sabonis is 6'11". We talked about him the other day. I mean, he is arguably playing like a top 5 power forward in the NBA right now. When you look at this team, they get Karis LeVert. It seems that they're trying to stay the same level they are. And I'm not saying LeVert and Oladipo are the same player, but they're trying to get cheaper. They really probably are and position themselves. You have Miles Turner. You got Sabonis. I can't remember who their point guard is off the top, and that's just from a lack of watching a ton of NBA this year because we've been so much football and everything going on. But when you look at this, guys, to me, Indiana didn't get a bad deal either because you get Karis LeVert, like you said, is a talented player. When he gets healthy and everything, it's going to be interesting to see kind of what happens. I think he was a little bit banged up with a hamstring injury heading into the final couple games. But I think when you look at what this team can do, man, this might have been a fair trade all the way around, really.
Indiana might be the big winner. I mean, you can do anything with draft picks. You can use them as draft leverage. You can take players. You can do whatever. And, we talked about the questions that Brooklyn has now. I mean, there's only one ball. I mean, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, and James Harden, they're all ball-dominant players. And Houston, I think Houston's just kind of scrambling right now, trying to keep their head above water, and getting Oladipo is huge. And I think Oladipo probably plays better with John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins than James Harden did.
He probably does. And Ralph, I want to throw this to you because this is the conversation that happens. And I talked about it. They have Miles Turner in Indiana. They have Sabonis. And now they add Karis LeVert. I don't know what the free agent landscape looks like for next year, but you got to think when you offload Victor Oladipo's contract, you bring in LeVert, who's not a max player, but he's a starter on an NBA team. Then you bring in these first round picks. Will and I were talking last night. I don't know if this draft is going to have one of those clear cut top pick guy, but I'm gonna tell you one thing. You could, like Will said, you could package that, swing a deal. Now you have a little flexibility financially as well. Financial flexibility, which Braves fans love, by the way.
Well, I'm looking currently. I did the little ESPN trade machine just to see if this would work. They've already updated the team's rosters, so couldn't do it. But Oladipo is he's coming off at least $21 million a year.
Wow.
Right. So and he only was on a 1-year deal. So you're looking at at Houston. They're going to have to re-sign him or go get someone else next year after the season's over. Now Harden, the Nets pick up $41.3 million with him. Mm-hmm. Now I don't know how much is being they're paying full amount for that, but you also have Kevin Durant at $40 million and Kyrie who's at $31 million.
Yeah.
So you have 3 players at $112 million. You don't have much left to spend. Yeah,
and I think too, Ralph, when you look at it, I just looked at LeVert's. It's around $16 million a year, 3-year, $52 million contract. They offset
That's
that.
cheap
Now they
for
have
the NBA these days.
And it is. It sounds crazy. NBA contracts are absolutely crazy. But interesting news. We're gonna have to talk more about it. But that's why we love doing the show at 4:00, man, because that's when they broke the news. And for 20 minutes, we sat here talking about the NBA. We hadn't talked about the NBA entirely. Ralph, I'll ask you to do this because we still don't have our intern here. Give me Indiana and see if they've updated it. Indiana's contract, like their salary breakdown. If they have that, that'd be something you should talk to. But Will, when you look at the free agent class going into 2021, and we're going to look that up right here, I think it's really interesting to see how the financial flexibility of Indiana has allowed them to maybe be a player in the offseason and kind of see what they could do. Because, listen, the East is open. I know that they're building something in Brooklyn, but you can challenge that. That 3 is not as scary to me as Steph, Clay, and Kevin Durant, and then Draymond Green, and some great supporting players.
Yep. When I haven't studied Indiana's roster, watched them play a whole lot, obviously, but just off the top of my head, I kind of feel like they really need to look for a point guard. Oladipo was running a lot of point for them. I mean, he was the primary ball handler on the team, and basketball is getting to be positionless anyway, so they kind of lose their primary ball handler. Sabonis can handle it really well being a power forward, but I don't want him bringing the ball up the floor every time and running the offense. LeVert did that a little bit for Brooklyn, but again, he was the second unit guy, and he's probably going to be a starter for Indiana. So, if they can find another guard, like you said, mid-level exception type would be perfect. But they should have cap space to go get really anybody they want.
We'll talk about the top free agents in 2021 class. They get that financial flexibility. Do they elect to spend it? Who's at the top of the board? Giannis himself. Now, LeBron James is there at number 2, player option. Kawhi Leonard with a player option at 3. Paul George at 4.
Giannis is signing a
player option.
supermax, though.
Yes. You get into 5, 6, 7, 8, and those are players where you may feel like you could make a run for them. But I'll tell you one thing, who's on number 6 there is Victor Oladipo. So he's an expiring contract. You're going to have to re-sign him. But you look and see, wouldn't that be crazy if Indiana just said, we'll take Oladipo back. We'll come back to Indiana. Drew Holiday. If you wanted a point guard, Drew Holiday's not bad. He's in Milwaukee right now, but he'll be a free agent into the season. Ralph, I'll get your final thoughts on this before we move on. But, I mean, to me, it's a fair trade all the way around, really. It's interesting to see now in 5 years, when with these picks, we kind of see what's happened. Maybe 10 years as they develop, we'll kind of see what happens. You always kind of have to, wait and see approach. You can't judge a trade. But just with the players switching places, I like this for Indiana. They free up some money. They get a good player. Mm-hmm. Houston, they get Oladipo. And maybe Oladipo fits better into the culture of what they want to do there because, like you said, Will, James Harden didn't want to be there anymore. So might as well get him out and get something for him. If you can replace him with Oladipo, that's pretty good.
Even if it is for this year.
Even it is for this year. We'll see what happens. But, Ralph, final thoughts on kind of how you think everything meshes, and do you have a clean winner, I should say?
Well, I think it's obvious. I think the Nets win this one. I mean, you bring in James Harden, and you're now one of the best teams in the world in the league now. And but yeah, I agree. I think all 3 teams win though. The Rockets clear out their problem with James Harden this year. He's definitely been a drama issue for them this year, and that's that causes problems. You saw DeMarcus Cousins lash out today about him on social media, I believe. And I think the Pacers, they lose Oladipo, but they get LeVert. Malcolm Brogdon is on their team still, and he's a very talented point guard also. So you might be seeing him a lot more this year for them. But yeah, I think all teams win, but I think the Nets got the majority of it with adding James Harden.
I think that they're going to add James Harden to the equation. If they can figure out to have enough basketballs to share, then it's going to be a potent offense. We're going to take another commercial break real quick as we get into more of a conversation, but we had breaking news here. Harden to the Nets, Oladipo to Houston, Karis LeVert, and about 9 million draft picks to the Indiana Pacers. You're watching The Crowded Booth here live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.
Cook's Place began serving our signature hot dogs in 1985 from a cart on Broadway. We still serve the best hot dogs and scrambled dogs in town at the corner of Moon and Miller Road and at the landings. Our friendly staff won't let you leave hungry. Come in and eat to the beat with our 50s jukebox. Cook's Place, fast service, great people, awesome food. What are you waiting for?
We are back here. It is a Wednesday afternoon, 4:30. We had Palmer Toms to talk a little bit of Georgia football, give us an update on the recruiting front on there. He's from Dogs 24/7. And then obviously we just talked about the James Harden Nets and the Oladipo, but I want to get into something here. It's interesting to see kind of what happens. We're going to go straight into college hoops now because we talked about the NBA. Well, let's go straight into college hoops. Will Auburn gets Sharif Cooper. He's going to play a second game tonight. I know you're itching to write a piece on crowdedbooth.com. Sign up today. You're itching to write a piece on him, but Cooper makes this offense just a little more dynamic. They have a player out tonight. Talk to us about kind of what to expect on the court in Stegman tonight at 7 p.m.
Yeah, so Sharif Cooper. Yeah, so Sharif Cooper made his debut Saturday against Alabama, the top team in the SEC right now. If y'all watched them last night, they dismantled Kentucky at Rupp Arena. And Auburn only lost to him by 4, so things kind of looking up for Auburn right now, I think. Not only with Cooper coming back, but what Cooper brings. He had y'all correct me, I'm getting my numbers mixed up. 29 and 6. 29 and 6 against Alabama. Beginning of the game was rough, trying to ease into it in his first college game. Obviously, in the end, was rough trying to get Auburn ahead and put the game away. But I think the big thing about him that you don't see from a lot of freshmen is maturity. He put that game on him. He said, I made too many mistakes at the end of the game that cost us. But the middle part of that game, man, he was dominant. Bit of an undersized guard, bit of a slow shot. So, if Georgia can get bodies on him, Georgia's going to be able to really slow down Auburn's offense and create a lot of turnovers. I'm expecting Georgia to trap him a lot, especially off an inbound, off a shot, so Auburn can't even get their offense set up. But Auburn with Cooper off the floor and with Justin Powell out, that was a player you mentioned that will be out. He's kind of been taking over the point guard duties, and he's really a two guard. Without a guard on the floor to command the offense, Auburn's offense just looks extremely dysfunctional. We've seen Alan Flanagan fill in as the primary ball handler, kind of getting the offense started, but he hasn't been nearly as good as Powell. And with Powell out, it's really up to Sharif Cooper, but he can't play all 40 minutes. So it's going to be really interesting to see what Auburn brings from a depth perspective. But the thing that I like most about Cooper, it reminded me a lot of the Final Four run with Jared Harper. Cooper attracts so much attention when he drives in, and that leaves guys open for three, whether it's Alan Flanagan, whose shots really come on. JT Thor, the power forward, he can step outside and shoot a three. So Georgia's going to have to just be patient defensively, not crash down on Cooper, kind of let him just go sometimes because, as we all know, three is better than two. Auburn showed everybody that when they went to the Final Four, living and dying by the three. But it is a good strategy if Georgia wants to play it that way. But, Sharif Cooper, first road game, a real test because Georgia, they're a sneaky team.
Yeah. Sneaky team, and I think what you have to see is Georgia is lacking a post presence. And I say that, and if people are watching who are Georgia basketball fans, but do you think that Auburn can take advantage of that? Because they have Tumani Kamara. We know that. They have a guy like Andrew Garcia, but those are kind of some undersized guys. Tumani Kamara honestly plays more like a small forward type of guard type player. They have Severe Wheeler, who's made great strides at the guard position, still makes some boneheaded plays, but I'll tell you, he's arguably the fastest player in the league going coast to coast. But they do add the four-star guard tonight. It's kind of hysterical. In the past 4 days, we've seen two guards get cleared for what is probably not going to be a primetime matchup, but it should be for fans here in the Southeast. Katie Johnson, Palmer Thomas taught us earlier, he'll be playing. The Dogs are going to be wearing their throwback whites. I'll say it. I'm wearing my throwback white tonight for the Dogs. We're going to see what happens. But Will and Ralph, I know I said I can't do it myself anymore. Can't do it myself. And I even posted that UNC Heels one. And I was pumped about that. But this game, do you think Auburn can take advantage as they get into the post? Because I'm going to tell you, it's been a problem. Arkansas did it well. Ralph was talking the other day about Arkansas seemingly always has a great post player. Bobby Portis and a bunch of other guys they've had.
Who's that big guy they've got now? That big 7-footer that can –
but
he can step outside and shoot the 3 too. He killed Auburn with the 3 ball.
Now, Will, I'll tell you this as we talk about this. Georgia took him out of the game completely because Georgia ran small and he couldn't stay and play defense with those. Now, Will, does Auburn have somebody in the low post that can really just start bang bodies a little bit and take advantage of maybe some undersized Georgia Bulldogs?
Yes, Dylan Cardwell. He's not the most technically sound center, really bit undersized center, but he's a big body. He's a physical presence. He'll get out and run the floor as well. He's a force on defense. He just brings energy to the team. Don't know if he'll start or not. He's kind of one of those guys, a spark off the bench type of guy, but he's definitely good enough to start, especially like you said, against a Georgia team that lacks an inside presence. If he's not out there, JT Thor can play in the post too, so we might see him at center a little bit.
We're going to get a question in here for you, specifically for you, from AJ Ingram. AJ, we appreciate you watching the show. I know he's only played one game, but with Sharif missing the first of 7 or 8 games, do you think he comes back, or is it still too early to tell? That's a great question. Will, what do you think?
Yeah, there's a ton of speculation surrounding that in Auburn. People are kind of split. You look at, the advantages he has of coming back. Like you said, he missed 7 or 8 games. I mentioned earlier he's a little undersized. He's got a bit of a slow shot to be undersized. The shot really won't translate to the NBA. So he's got a lot to work on in his game. And Auburn, they don't have a postseason this year. Postseason means a lot to these guys. They don't even have the SEC tournament to play, which for some teams means a lot more than the NCAA tournament. So there's a lot of advantages for him to come back. Obviously, the money's a big pull. He'll definitely look out and get a grade from the NBA, and depending on that grade will be whether he comes back. Ralph, what you got?
Yeah, I'm all for guys staying more than 1 year in college basketball. I've always been against one and dones. I think Sharif Cooper should stay. I think he will stay. I think he realizes that he can do a lot here in college. Now, like you said, he is undersized and he has a slow shot. If he develops that, and obviously he can't develop size, that's not on him. But if he develops that shot better, he could be a pretty dominant guard, and especially in NBA these days, that they love these guys who can go right through drive to the basket and make plays, and I think that's what Sharif Cooper brings to the table. So, I think he'll stay. I don't think it's too early to tell. Honestly, he'll only play one game. I think we saw a lot what he can do next year. So
yeah, money is a big pull. A lot of times, money is the reason. But Cooper, his dad's an NBA agent. That's part of the reason why he missed a lot of the games. And Ralph, Ralph, you reminded me of another player for Auburn that could have a big impact tonight. Why don't you talk about him?
Did I? Oh no, I'm talking about the guy from Arkansas. You were talking about earlier, Jalen.
Oh, he's from
Jalen Williams. Yeah, the big man from
Auburn has a Jalen Williams, right? That wasn't the big guy I was talking about.
No, it's not. I saw him. I looked up real quickly. As he was 6'10", he had a lot of points against Georgia.
I'm pretty sure Auburn has a Jalen Williams.
But the comment on y'all's game about tonight, I think it comes down to rebounds. And I already said, I mean, both teams. I'm looking at the stats here. Auburn's leading rebounder per game is Justin Powell, and you have a guard who's 6'6", who is leading your team in rebounds. Something's wrong there with your big men. So I want to say. It comes down to the rebound, who wins the post, who can get the most offensive rebounds, and get his and ones, and it comes down to free throws too.
I'll tell you this, and I'll follow up with this. AJ, you're completely right. Unfortunately, Justin Powell will not be able to play tonight. But I want to go to kind of what Bruce Pearl said today in his press conference about Georgia, or yesterday. He said, they got three really good older kids, and Justin PJ Horn, Andrew Garcia. They're tough and they're physical, and they have a lot of experience. Now, this is a team in Georgia who started and played 9 to 10 freshmen last year, okay? They're a very young team. Crean said, we cannot do that again. Let's bring in some experience. The guy can hit from three, and there's no doubt about it. Georgia, but though Georgia is like 222nd in three-point percentage in the entire college basketball landscape, but he can hit from three great individually. To me, this is going to be a typical game, as it has been in a couple years. If Auburn gets hot, they're going to win. Georgia is going to have to not let them get hot for as long of a period of time, and it's going to be a grinded out physical game. If they make it physical, I think Georgia can win this game tonight. If they make it a game where there's a lot of stuff in transition, Auburn's got the speed to really go and run away with that. No pun intended.
I mean, you look at Bruce Pearl's time at Auburn. Winning in Athens has been difficult. It's been a major challenge. I mean, Georgia's really kind of had Auburn's number on their home floor.
Sounds like every sport for Auburn.
Right. And just to fact check myself, there is a Jalen Williams on Auburn. Ralph sent me the text of his name, and it's how it's spelled. The guy on the Auburn roster. He's another physical presence inside. He can really bang bodies down there, and he's an exciting player as well. Auburn's got some big guys that can really move, and they're just freaks athletically, and will run the floor. They'll block some shots. I mean, Auburn, they're a fun team to watch. They're a different team that went to the Final Four. They're still just as fun to watch.
They're a fun team to watch. It'll be a fun game to watch. My prediction is Auburn will run away late. I think you'll see about 11 to 10-minute mark in the second half. Auburn will pull ahead in a double-digit victory. I'm going for the Tigers. I'm telling you, this Georgia team, you should have no faith in them. And I'm saying that as growing up a Georgia fan, none. If you're not a real Georgia fan and you don't know real heartbreak, if you think Devontae Smith hurts you, try Malik Monk hitting a three. Try every single time Kentucky comes into Stegman, they somehow get a shot at the end or a foul call to win the game. But it's going to be a fun game to watch. Will, there was some great basketball last night, though. We're going to talk about this one. Head up to the Big Ten, where Ralph's coldest take of the year is the Big Ten is not even good at basketball.
Can I go ahead and address this real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
While
I get this graphic going, you go ahead. I'll give you the floor.
That's good. Put it on my face. All right. I have made the worst take of my entire life, and I will admit that today. I will admit this in front of Will and Bryce. I'll admit this in front of whoever's watching. I said the Big Ten wasn't going to be good in basketball this year. I was wrong. I admit I was wrong. And I will always admit that I was wrong on this one. It was a terrible take. The Big Ten is dominating in basketball. As we saw last night, as Michigan dismantled Wisconsin, if I'm not wrong. I think.
Yes.
You are 1,000% right.
That's actually 77 to 54, if I'm correct on that.
And I'm not even wrong yet. Golly, that's just
Ralph. You talk about a bad take. A bad bet was Wisconsin +3.
Oh.
Listen, Michigan throttles Wisconsin. And also, I'll get in this topic too. The Big Ten's good at basketball. We're going to have a fantastic finish to get into March, which is going to be a welcome sight, having March Madness again.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll tell you one thing, and this is I'll go back to Georgia fans on this. I don't hate Tom Crean. I think it's still a good hire. I don't know what you think you're going to get. It's almost like if they fire Tom Crean, it's almost like Auburn firing Gus. I mean, like how much better do you think you can get? You know what I mean? Like you're playing in a great conference. You're at a conference is good. Who are you going to play? Or who are you going to put at coach? But I think one thing when you look is very interesting in this, Texas. Look at Texas and what they've done. Shaka Smart, it took them a while, honestly,
They're
to
number
get
4 in the country.
They're number 4 in the country. They're a very good basketball team. It took him some years to institute his players. And I'm telling you, Texas is not one of those schools that typically has your one-and-done players. Georgia's definitely not that. Anthony Edwards was a complete outlier for that program. And I'll say this, if Anthony Edwards is watching, Georgia is a better basketball team this year than they were last year. Hands down, not even close, they are. It was hero ball, and I'll tell you why. I won't front him, but I talked to a certain player that transferred out of Georgia this year, and he said it was hero ball. And he was a freshman last year. He's now at a new school getting playing time, and he said you couldn't develop your game at all. And so the frustrating part is when you look at Georgia and you look at what they have basketball going on, look towards Shaka Smart. Give Crean as much time. What's it going to hurt? You're not a basketball school.
Yeah,
I don't know. Your counter argument for that is Alabama. Remember, they had Avery Johnson, who I think is a really good coach. They kind of hit their ceiling with him, which wasn't even really contending in the SEC. They bring in Nate Oates, and Nate Oates in his second year, he's got Alabama looking like they're the best team in the SEC.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's helped with Kentucky being down and Tennessee, I think, not living up to expectations. But look else in the SEC. LSU off to a really good start. Arkansas, especially Arkansas, and they always have a strong team. They're a very strong basketball program, but they're off to a hot start.
The SEC top to bottom. I'm sorry. When you look down at that entire conference, I mean, there's talented teams. Kentucky having a down year, but I think Nate Oates said it best. It's still Kentucky. They have the talent there. It's just the talent. Brandon Boston, who many thought would be the top pick in the draft, he's had a horrendous start to his college career. And listen, I don't know if you can blame him. I mean, these guys have had to go through so much with getting tested all the time for COVID to making sure. I mean, Georgia Tech, we've said in the press conferences with Pastner, Georgia Tech didn't even have contact practices. They literally worked on fundamental drills around cones, and that's why they got beat by Georgia State and Mercer. Georgia State and Mercer.
You got to look who Kentucky played to start the season. They played North Carolina, Kansas. I think they played North Carolina. They played Kansas.
Richmond.
I mean,
Richmond beat Kentucky, yes.
They're a big
they're
major.
A very good team, though.
Yes. But Kentucky played a handful of big major programs. I can't think of all of them. But, I mean, I remember John Calipari said it was stupid. He said, I was stupid for making this schedule.
You felt stupid, and I think that's what Pastner talked about there. We're just going to talk about college hoops in general. We got 13 minutes left, but we're still going to run a little bit of overtime today, so you get some bonus time in the booth. We may have to type that out there. I'll tell you this. I just want to ask you a question, guys. You look at the conferences, and Will and I had this conversation yesterday. Historically, the ACC has been dominant, and we know about that. But I would argue that the ACC this year is one of the conferences, and obviously Duke is not where they usually are. North Carolina is okay. They get a big win over Syracuse last night. They were able to grind out. But traditionally, it's a good conference because it's so top-heavy. And you have the Blue Bloods, and you have the brand name, and Jordan brand, and all this stuff. The Big Ten, good conference.
Top to bottom, good conference.
Top to bottom, top to the end. Yes, top to the end, as I said earlier. Top to bottom, Big Ten is probably the best conference in basketball. But I want to ask you this. When you look and you see the SEC, where does it rank? I'm going to ask Ralph first because Will and I forgot about a conference in basketball that is very, very good. Will or Ralph? Well, no. But Ralph, answer me. Where do you think in a Power 5 rating, or let's not say the mid-majors, let's just say normal, where do these teams rank for you, or where does the SEC rank out of those kind of those big conferences?
Power 5, I'm guessing.
Well, yeah, run with the Power 5. If there's not really a Power 5 in college basketball, but yes,
right. We know what we're talking about when we say Power 5. I put them at 4. I think they're just a little above the Pac-12. I don't think the Pac-12 has. I mean, they have. I think Oregon this year. I think is their best team, and UCLA is behind them.
Colorado. I am going to defend Colorado.
Oh, God.
2021, I am a Colorado basketball fan. I have watched
Colorado
several
sports betting basketball fan. That's what he is.
No.
Now, Ralph, I want to go back to you on this because
I love the way they play.
Who's 1, 2, and 3 for you?
So I'm gonna use Big Ten is my number 1. Big 12 is number 2, and I'll put the ACC at 3. because they still now. I mean, now we're talking about when you think of the ACC, you think of Duke and North Carolina off the top of your head. Now they got Louisville, Virginia, Virginia Tech, and Clemson this year, who are all very good teams.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I don't think they're going to be. We won't see them play anyone until the tournament, like out of conference anymore. But I mean, I would love to see some of these teams go against Big Ten teams now. That'd be a great kind of cross conference games when they do those. I don't remember when they do those anymore.
Yeah, well, I think SEC Big 12 is going to be here in a couple weeks. Actually, they're going to play. All right, so then I'm going to name some teams, and you tell me why they were not. This conference was not in your top 3. Will and I had completely forgot about them. Villanova, Creighton, UConn, Seton Hall. I'm sorry, Xavier, Providence, Marquette, St. John's. 9 of their 12 teams have winning records.
I'm looking at that right now.
I mean, I'm telling you, we forgot about the Big East. So to me, the Big East is up there as well. But listen, we're going to head to another commercial break as we get ready for a little bit of talk. Well, we're going to get to Tracy Rocker. We will. We might. But I'll tell you one thing.
You promised it at the top of the show.
I faintly hear the sound of a wooden bat hitting a ball somewhere in the tropical area of Florida. And we're getting close. We're going to talk about Rob Manfred. Or desert in Arizona, not real spring training.
No one cares about it there.
But Rob Manfred, probably the best decision he's made. He's going to have to be he got to be in pins and needles for we're waiting to see what's going on. We'll be right back. Another commercial break here as we wrap up a little bonus time in the booth.
Cook's Place began serving our signature hot dogs in 1985 from a cart on Broadway. We still serve the best hot dogs and scrambled dogs in town at the corner of Moon and Miller Road and at the landings. Our friendly staff won't let you leave hungry. Come in and eat to the beat with our 50s jukebox. Cook's Place, fast service, great people, awesome food. What are you waiting for?
We are back here. We are going to be talking a little bit. Now, before we get to what we're going to talk about in the show, just fill me in real quick, Will. Tracy Rocker makes the hire. You had the article on thecrowdedbooth.com. Our viewers would have already known it if they were signed up, so sign up today right there for free for our free newsletter. Talk to me, Will, about what Tracy Rocker brings, what that also means for an outgoing now defensive line coach.
Yeah, so Tracy Rocker, I think even more notably than a coach, is best known for his playing days at Auburn. He was a 1998 Outland and Lombardi Trophy Award winner. Bryce and I were talking earlier. We think he's only got to win both awards in a single year.
Yeah.
So just a true standout. Played for the Washington Redskins in the NFL. That was their name. That when he played.
Yes.
We're not going to get into
it's okay to use it right
football
now.
Team. And Rocker is going to come back to Auburn. This is his second stint as a defensive line coach. He was a D-line coach in 2009 and 2010, national championship team, coached Nick Fairley, and then spent some time at Georgia, spent some time with the Tennessee Titans, University of Tennessee, most recently at South Carolina, and even before he came to Auburn, he was at Arkansas and Ole Miss for a few years. So a guy that's been around the SEC, really knows the footprint, knows the D-line position better than a lot of guys. A lot of questions raised about his recruiting. I mean, he recruited the number 1 player in the class of 2015, Trenton Thompson, to Georgia. Like I mentioned in the article, a lot of Georgia fans say he can't recruit, that Mike Bobo was the reason Trenton Thompson went to Georgia. But recruiting is a staff effort. It takes, from what I can tell, about 3 coaches to get a kid to sign a letter of intent. That's your primary recruiter, which is normally the position coach, secondary recruiter, which is another coach on staff, and the head coach to finish it. And, oh, by the way, Mike Bobo coaches for Auburn now. If they've worked together recruiting at Georgia, they can do it at Auburn too. Tracy Rocker just checks a ton of boxes. Another one is a lot of talk has been that Auburn's wanting to get back to the Pat Dye days of just being hard-nosed, physical. I mean, looking back at the Malzahn era and kind of recruiting strategy and game plan strategy, he was trying to beat Georgia and Alabama's muscle with speed. Well, Georgia and Alabama have found speed to go with their muscle. And Brian Harsin looks like he's building a staff that's going to recruit and emphasize that muscle. He's going strength on strength, mano a mano. Tracy Rocker just checks those boxes. I think it's a good hire. But, like I said, just about Brian Harsin in general, we'll find out in about 3 years how good it was.
We'll find out. Indeed, Auburn brings on Tracy Rocker. Like you said, he's been around. That's what you can say. He's been a lot of different places. We're going to get to the topic that we all really care about. Tracy Rocker to Auburn's great. That's fantastic. But not often do you get a game that is as romantic. Not often do you get a game that is just beautiful, that paints a picture over 7 to 8 months out of a year, makes you fall in love, makes you angry, makes you be in a group chat with completely ridiculous and stupid ideas. But I'll tell you one thing. Rob Manfred announced that Major League Baseball is set for a normal start in 2021. But our question is, how will they do it? Now, Will, you and I were talking about this earlier, and I want to get your take on it as well, Ralph. Usually, typically, pitchers and catchers report around February 26th, 27th, the end of February, and then we get ourselves into, or I'm sorry, February 17th, and then they start playing games around the 26th, 27th. When you see exactly the logistics, now you got to feel good about, from a COVID standpoint, how teams are going to be able to quarantine. I mean, Major League Baseball, listen, if you haven't figured out in the past 8 months of how teams are doing this, you need to get off the couch and go look, because it's possible. I'm telling you one thing: if they cancel baseball or they even delay it, it's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. But Will, with this conversation coming out and 2 unnamed sources saying it's going to happen February, and then you have your typical, as around that March 31st, April 1st opening day, as you see Pete the Cat makes a special appearance. That means that there's a plan in place. There's no doubt about it. What that plan is exactly, any speculation on your part, or what you kind of think, Will, of what could happen? And I'll say, how did they make this work? There's got to be fans. You cannot lose the amount of money you lost last year, even if it's $10,000 and you gradually grow into it. I'm fine with that. But I got an email the other day in my area. Obviously, the Braves are selling tickets, single game tickets. You can buy them already. For you, Will, there's got to be some type of plan in place. What are you kind of speculating? What do you think? What do you see possibly maybe some opportunities that could happen here in 2021 for baseball?
Right. So a question I have that has been raised, that I'm sure MLB has raised it, and they really don't have an answer either, is vaccines. How many are there going to be for players? How many are there going to be for fans? That could cause fans to come later on in the season. Maybe May or June we may not see fans. But I think an easy fix as far as fans go is don't have anybody in the lower levels, to get, maybe a little graphic, nobody within spitting distance of a player, you can't spit on them from the stands, just from a health and logistical standpoint. But you're right. They can't afford to lose the money that they did. Their TV contract money is great, but they get even more money just on game day, ticket sales, concession stand sales, apparel sales on game day. MLB took a big hurting financially in 2020. I think they did a great job of getting in a 60-game season and an expanded playoff. It was great. And, like you were saying, they should know how these teams quarantine. They had a trial run last year. Now I think they can go 162 if they can do the same thing they did last year. I know that's a lot to ask on the players' families, but you got to play. I said it about football, college football season. There's too much money at stake. They got to do it.
And at the end of the day, it's all about the money, and people don't want to hear about that, but it really is. Ralph, I want to get some closing thoughts from you on this, because baseball, they did what they could, and I'm telling you one thing, it was awesome to see. The Bubble World Series, the Bubble ALCS, NLCS, it was cool. And the playoffs, really, it was a cool thing to see. But for you, I'm telling you, it'd be nice as a Braves fan, as all of us here are, to see Truist, for the first time as Truist, but to see Truist and kind of have that interaction once again. Truist sits around 38 to 45,000, somewhere in between there. If you put 10,000 in there, you're still doing that. But the double standard set, and I told Will this, Will pointed this out to me as well, is when you have fans come into Truist Park to watch a playoff game that was against the Dodgers, but you can't have them there when the players are there. Like that lot, there is absolutely no logic, and you're not going to convince me that you're concerned about health concerns when you do that. You're not. Also, the battery. We saw the videos. We saw the pictures. People were there. And I'm telling you, across the country, Wrigleyville is going to be like that if they don't play. And it probably was. I don't understand why you can't put 10,000. I don't. And if it's a financial, please explain it to me. But, Ralph, for you, do you at least see maybe 10,000 fans being in attendance for on opening day for the Braves, let's say?
Well, I would really hope we wish that would happen. I would love to go back to what is Truist now. I've never seen Truist as Truist itself. 10,000 fans should not be a problem for the MLB. You have plenty of room to fit 10,000 fans. I mean, now
and space them out.
Yeah, and space them out. You have your upper decks. I mean, if you're on the lower level, the closest person on the upper deck. I mean, I can't explain how far that is for you. But it's far enough. It's over 6 feet. It's over spitting distance at least. So if you're going to put fans in the stadium, you have plenty of room and you've had plenty of time to prepare for this. If you want to do fans, I think it should be on organizations and teams' choice to do it. I don't think MLB should have any say in it. And that's just me saying that because look what happened this past year. A lot of teams lost a lot of money without having fans in the stadiums. I know MLB lost a lot of money, but if you're going to let the people have fans, let the teams and organizations do their own numbers and let them see how many they want to do it first. Probably start with a low number at 5,000 and then work the way up and see how many they can get in there before they hit a limit where it's too much. We need to probably bring it down a little bit more.
And I think, too, when you look, I mean, I understand, too, that when you do bring fans in, you're going to have ushers. You're going to have concessions. And I get that. That's what we call in the business world operating costs. And it's kind of crazy because Russell Forharver just put that in as a comment. You're going to lose. You're going to lose more from operating costs if there's partial fan attendance. I understand that. I do not believe that the sport of baseball can survive if you just say, no, we're not going to have fans. I don't think it can. Not only from a marketing standpoint, we'll talk more about that later on in some shows as we get closer to baseball season, but just from a standpoint of you're losing fandom. If people can't watch it, like I enjoy watching baseball on TV. I love being there and watching it too, though. Mm-hmm. There's very few people that like watch baseball on TV. I could sit and watch all 162 games if need be. But I think too, when you look at this, Major League Baseball, will we trust that they have some plans in place? Because you can't just come out and say this and not do anything and not have any plan in place. But it's going to be interesting to see exactly what happens. Listen, we went 1 minute over, but it was a fun, action-packed show. We went from talking about Georgia recruiting with Dogs 24/7's reporter and writer Palmer Toms to talking breaking news of a trade that has happened. And I want to read this back to you real quick before we end the show today. We bring back the little graphic. Let's see what the actual package was. Now, this is the current full trade that Shams, our guy with Stadium and The Athletic, has tweeted and put out. Oladipo, this is going to the Rockets. Oladipo, Dante Exum, Rodinius Carux, 3 Brooklyn first-round picks in 22, 24, and 26. 4 Brooklyn or Milwaukee's first-round pick next year. 4 Brooklyn first-round swaps. That is what the Rockets are getting. The Nets are just getting James Harden. The Pacers are getting a second-round pick in Karis LeVert. So what we thought earlier is not happening. And the Cavs are involved as well. The Cavs, they got Jarrett Allen and Taurean Prince. So interesting to see. I'll tell you this: Jarrett Allen, that's a piece. Taurean Prince is nothing more than a rotational player. He's nothing more than a rotational player for the Cavaliers. But Jarrett Allen,
my initial thought was how does Allen fit on the Rockets with Cousins there? But how does he fit on the Cavs with Drummond there? I mean, he and Drummond are almost the same player.
Jarrett Allen has a little bit more diversity in his he's diversified his offensive game more than Drummond. Drummond's not an outside shooter. He's a back-to-the-basket traditional center. Mm-hmm. But anyways, listen, guys, we're going to have a podcast come out on Friday and then back here live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube on Monday. We appreciate you watching. We appreciate you listening. And make sure to check us out on thecrowdedbooth.com. As for Ralph, Will, and myself, it has been another episode of The Crowded Booth Live.